Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of Africa Update right here on Trust Television, reaching from Abuja, Nigeria's capital. We have a lot for you this week. When we come back, just stay with us. Welcome back. You're still tuned into Africa Update on Trust TV, and I'm your host, Chiamaka Mwafo. Now let's start with what's happening in Botswana, where in a historic turnaround, the opposition party Umbrella for Democratic Change, UDC, has won a majority in parliament and now can form the next government. The Electoral Commission announced on Friday, marking a historic defeat for the Botswana Democratic Party, BDP, that had governed the diamond-rich country for nearly 6 decades. Outgoing President Mogwetsi Masisi considered defeating Wednesday's general election and said his administration would begin handing over the reins of government in the next few days. Independent Electoral Commission spokesperson Usupile Maroba has said the UDC has reached the minimum requirement to be declared the next government. The UDC needed 31 seats out of 61 to govern alone, and its results, combined with those of 2 other opposition parties, had already reached that target earlier Friday. Now on Friday, November 1, the government of Mauritius ordered a nationwide ban on social media access in the lead-up to the November 10 parliamentary elections. Now, the National Communications Regulator announced that social media sites would remain blocked until November 11, the day after the elections. This unprecedented move follows a wiretapping scandal last month, where leaked recordings of conversations involving politicians, business leaders, civil society members, and 5 prominent journalists surfaced on social media. The Mauritian government, citing national security concerns, instructed the Communications Authority to suspend social media access. Network provider MTEL confirmed it would comply, warning users of gradual service disruptions. In a statement, the Prime Minister's office emphasized the need for this suspension to protect national security and maintain the country's integrity, adding that the crisis committee was actively addressing related risk. Prime Minister Pravin Jugnauth is seeking re-election for a second term. And now we move over to Guinea, where on Monday the transitional military government dissolved 53 political parties and placed 54 others under a 3-month observation period amid ongoing delays in setting an election date. Guinea, ruled by a military regime since President Alpha Conde's 2021 ouster, has been urged by the West African bloc ECOWAS to hold elections currently scheduled for 2025. The Ministry of Territorial Administration and Decentralization explained that this move followed an evaluation of the parties since June aimed at cleaning up the political chessboard. The 54 parties under observation, including Conde's Rally of the Guinean People and the Union of Democratic Forces of Guinea, must address organizational issues such as overdue congresses and missing bank statements. Guinea joins other West African nations like Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, where military takeovers have delayed democratic transitions. Colonel Mamadi Doumbouya, who leads the junta, overthrew Conde in 2021, citing a need to restore order, though he has since faced criticisms for dissolving the government without explanation and making limited progress toward civilian rule.
Guinea's junta has dissolved dozens of political parties and placed 2 major opposition ones under observation, prompting fears the army wants to stay in power indefinitely. The mass dissolution of 53 parties and required observation of 53 others for 3 months is unprecedented in Guinea, which held its first democratic election in 2010 after decades of authoritarianism. The Ministry of Decentralization said the decision followed an evaluation exercise of all political parties which began in June. The parties placed under observation include the Rally of the Guinean People of former President Alpha Conde and another major opposition party, the Union of Democratic Forces of Guinea. They are accused of failing to hold their party congress within the time limit and to provide audited books of accounts as required by the law. Guinea's army rulers are still silent on when the elections will be held.
And over in Kenya, Kenya's new deputy president has been sworn into office 2 weeks after his predecessor was overwhelmingly voted out in an impeachment motion in parliament over allegations of corruption and inciting ethnic division. Kindiki Kithure took office in Friday after a colorful event in the capital Nairobi, attended by government officials and Western envoys, among other guests. The court cleared his swearing on Thursday after orders suspending it were lifted, despite a continuing court case challenging the impeachment of the previous deputy president, Rigathi Gachagua. Gachagua is challenging the impeachment before the High Court in Nairobi, arguing that the charges are unsubstantiated and that the hearings were unfair. The former deputy president was impeached and removed from office by a vote of more than two-thirds of legislators on October 17th on charges of corruption, inciting ethnic divisions and support for anti-government protests. President William Ruto nominated Kindiki for deputy role the next day. Gachagua's impeachment has highlighted divisions within the ruling United Democratic Alliance, or UDA, and friction between Ruto and him, both UDA members. Still staying with Kenya, the Supreme Court on Tuesday overturned an appeals court decision that had nullified the 2023 finance law, a victory for President William Ruto's administration. The government had been relying on the 2023 law to continue tax collection after withdrawing this year's finance bill due to widespread protest. Africa News has more.
Kenya's Supreme Court overturned an appeals court decision on Tuesday that had nullified the 2023 finance law, a victory for President William Ruto's administration. The government had been relying on the 2023 law to continue tax collection after withdrawing this year's finance bill due to widespread protests. The 2023 finance law, which included increased fuel taxes, a housing levy, and higher top income tax rates, triggered opposition-led protests and unrest, leading to over 60 deaths in June and July. In response, Ruto withdrew this year's bill, delaying an international monetary fund disbursement. Ruto maintains the tax hikes are crucial for funding development and addressing Kenya's debt. The IMF's executive board is set to review the new funding tranche on Wednesday following Kenya's compliance with the fund's requirements.
It's now time for a short break, and when we come back, we'll tell you what's happening in South Sudan and other parts of the continent. Do stay with us. Welcome back. Thanks for staying with us here on Africa Update on Trust TV. Now let's get to what's happening in South Sudan, where the peace monitoring body RJMEC held its first significant meeting since the latest election delay, where UN officials and youth representatives expressed frustration over the prolonged transition period, urging a new plan and funding to prioritize peace and democratic processes. Here's more.
South Sudan's peace monitoring body, the RJMEC, held Thursday its first substantial meeting since the latest postponement of delayed elections. The head of the UN mission to the country said a new work plan was needed to restore confidence in South Sudan's leadership. A youth activist shared her disappointment.
While we acknowledge the challenges that led to the extension of the transitional period, we cannot help but feel a sense of disappointment and frustration. 2 years is indeed a long time for a generation that has grown up in conflict. It's another 2 years of uncertainty and another 2 years of delayed dreams.
When announcing the extension in September, the government cited uncompleted critical tasks. During the RJMEC meeting, it did not provide a substantive update on the implementation plan. The country has never held polls since gaining independence in 2011.
Now on Thursday, the UN Security Council renewed the mandate of the UN mission for the referendum in Western Sahara, MINURSO, for another year. The decision saw abstentions from Russia, Mozambique and Algeria chose not to participate in the vote.
The UN Security Council renewed the mandate of UN mission for referendum in Western Sahara for another 1 year on October 31, though the decision was marked by abstentions from Russia and Mozambique, while Algeria opted not to vote. Algeria proposed 2 amendments aimed at supporting a political solution, but these were not adopted. You have certainly noticed that Algeria decided fully responsibly not to participate in the vote on this resolution for a range of reasons. which I will now touch upon. First of all, because of the attitude of the pen holder.
En raison, disons-le, de l'attitude du porte-plume.
Over the last week, our viewers, which I unscrupulously noted down and documented and well-founded with agreed language within the Security Council, were not born in mind. Let us say so candidly. They were deliberately ignored.
Disons-le franchement.
Mozambique's UN ambassador shared concerns, noting that the resolution in its current form without the Algerian amendment will not assist the parties.
The resolution in its current form without the Algerian amendments will not assist the parties in achieving a just, lasting, and mutually acceptable political solution, nor will it assist the Special Envoy in his work. On the contrary, it entrenches the trend of a gradual departure from the original mandate as stated in the very name of MINURSO.
Russia added that its recommendations to address stagnant peace efforts were also ignored.
Now, Africa loses nearly $90 billion annually to financial crimes linked to corruption, tax evasion, environmental crime and more. But an initiative is training journalists to follow the money and expose how these crimes are connected to other illegal activities. For VOA, Sinanu Turd reports from Accra.
Reporter Jessie Olamorris prepares for her latest assignment, covering human rights for the media outlet Yen in Ghana. Her coverage on migration, street hawkers, and homelessness helps expose gaps in social policies and inspires advocacy.
I've always wanted to be the voice of the voiceless, speak for people who cannot speak for themselves.
That drive expanded when Olamorris joined a training program that introduced her to how cartels, politicians, and businesses move money from illegal activities across borders.
Evading taxes, human trafficking, money laundering, and all of these were issues that were everyday issues. Sometimes you see them and then you just take them as normal things, but they were really things that were hurting the country.
The United Nations estimates Africa loses $88.6 billion a year, or 3.7% of Africa's combined GDP, to the cross-border movement of money linked to illegal activities. These illicit financial flows, or IFFs, come from a range of sources including illegal extraction of resources such as gold, cocoa, timber, and fisheries. IFF expert Bishop Akogo says cartels create ecosystems that fund terrorism, nature crimes, and human rights violations.
They largely would use intimidation, violence, and others to acquire the items. They use, for example, they would child labor to produce some of the items that they can then ship to other places. They also use bribery and corruption to corrupt the system.
To expose these illicit practices, the Media Foundation for West Africa and the Thomson Reuters Foundation created a training program for journalists. The assignment to follow the money. The program teaches investigative reporting, fact-checking, and how to analyze company records and statements.
The areas of covering illicit financial flows is an area where you are dealing with the wealthy and powerful. And therefore it is important that we will equip you with both the skills and the resilience to be able to cover that subject.
The project has trained about 40 investigative journalists over 2 years. In that time, they have made headlines by uncovering irregularities in government scholarship programs and tax waiver policies. Reporter Jessie Olamorris says with her training, she is investigating possible connections between human traffickers and unauthorized foreign currency traders bringing cash across the border.
Nobody checks the source of the money at the borders because they are unapproved routes. So if it's involving human trafficking or any of these illegal activities, nobody knows.
She hopes following the money will help bring criminals to justice.
And now to Sudan. In war-stricken Omdurman, Sudan's most populous city, community-funded soup kitchens are feeding those in need with little help from the international community. As one part of Sudan faces famine, the world's first in 7 years, the US and others have called on the warring sides to allow unfettered access for aid groups. Henry Wilkins reports for the VOA.
When the fighting started in Omdurman, Sudan's most populous city, Ahmed Mohamed Ali refused to flee. He said he would rather die in his home than suffer the pain of long-term displacement. Along with other members of the community, they pooled their resources and began cooking and sharing meals for those who remained in the city.
Because we have very few resources, we created a WhatsApp group and a Facebook page. And we also have TikTok and started trying to spread awareness of what we were doing. Then we started receiving donations from the Sudanese diaspora abroad.
With the city's economy in a state of collapse since Sudan's war started in April 2023, Ali says his makeshift soup kitchen now feeds 200 families every day, thanks to private donations. Others like it have sprung up across the city with almost no support from international aid groups. An October statement by 11 of the world's biggest humanitarian donors, including USAID, says both sides in the conflict are obstructing aid groups' access to cities like Omdurman. It says systemic obstruction of local and international humanitarian efforts is at the root of this famine. One part of Sudan is undergoing the world's first famine in 7 years, while large swathes of the country are one step away from falling into famine. In an interview with VOA, Sudan's finance minister said aid groups are being given all the access they need.
Yes, of course they have the access. You can talk to them, and actually no one have obstructed their movements around.
VOA spoke to Refugees International, an advocacy group for displaced people that partners with various international aid groups.
To claim that international NGOs and UN agencies have all the access they need is blatantly false. Spoken to many partner groups that are working on the ground, and whether it's the direct blatant blocking of aid or the slow rolling of visas and other bureaucratic impediments, clearly people who are working on the ground do not feel that they have the access they need. And
the opposing side in Sudan's conflict, the Rapid Support Forces, did not respond to a request for comment. UN experts have said that due to the lack of access for traditional aid groups, soup kitchens like Ali's are leading the way for the delivery of food aid in Sudan. But Ali says aid groups need to help.
I ask God Almighty to help us reach international aid groups. Reaching these organizations is very important.
He says he's only able to serve one meal a day for those who arrive on his doorstep.
Hopefully the warring sides in Sudan would allow for the access and the aids to get to the people that need them. That's much we have for you this week on Africa Update. So I'll see you same place, same time next week. Don't forget to follow us on our social media platforms and on our YouTube live stream for more news, programs and documentaries. I am Chiamaka Nwafo. Bye for now.